By the way, I still don't get Snapchat. So for those of you out there who are on Snapchat, I just want to say I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like what? It's just like arbitrary BS that's on there. And people just, hey, I'm walking down the street. It's a Tuesday, so I don't
That was
understand that.
happening with Facebook. Everybody was like, checking in at the Denny's, and here's my Grand Slam. They take a picture with their Grand Slam, and
Yeah, but
I'm
that
so
doesn't happen as much on
chair.
Facebook anymore.
No, not anymore, man.
Right.
Now that they got Snapchat,
Now it's
apparently, but
Snapchat, right?
But I honestly,
Exactly.
I didn't care what you had for lunch anyway. Think about how often you actually ask somebody, when you see them, hey, what'd you have for lunch? I mean, my wife asked me that. That's about it, when she's checking up on me. So,
Okay.
and I'm always embarrassed to say that I had Shake Shack or whatever.
Hey, man, there's nothing wrong with Shake Shack. All right.
Hey,
Here we are, episode 7.
seven,
Episode 7.
seven.
Yeah. Just want to start by saying, really condolences to all the people who were hurt and people who lost their loved ones in Las Vegas. And, you know, just, pray. We're praying for you guys, it's just a terrible time. So I just wanted to start with that. Do you have anything to add to that, Mr. Moniker?
No, just the same. Heart goes out to you, and we're all pulling for you. And I think it's times like this you start to see some of the rhetoric kind of dialed down, and people are gathering together, donating blood,
Okay.
doing what they can. So
Right, right. Um, so, anywho, same stuff, subscribe, like, dislike, comment. I think we had one comment already recently, so that's a good thing.
total. Our
Right,
one comment
our
from our
one
one
comment.
viewer.
Right. So we would like more. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, so what I want to talk about now that it's been a few days since the tragedy is I've been really dismayed by the fact that every time we have one of these tragedies happen and guns are involved, uh, there's always some attack on our Second Amendment freedoms and liberties.
I've been reading comments from people say this is terrible, but there's nothing we can do about it. But I disagree with that intensely because, of course, there's something we can do about it. There are a lot of things we can do about it, but we don't, which is interesting because when someone with a beard attacks us, we tap phones, we invoke travel bans, we build walls, we take every possible precaution to make sure it doesn't happen again. But when an American buys a gun and kills other Americans, then there's nothing we can do about that. And Second Amendment, I guess, our forefathers wanted us to have AK-47s, is the argument, I assume.
Well, not every
So,
time. I mean, when the Bernie supporter went after the Republican softball team, I think they were, I don't think anybody was claiming about gun rights. You know,
okay,
I don't know. It didn't sound as much like there was the call for gun control
right, right.
at that point. So
I think I heard a little bit, but it wasn't nearly as much as this. Um,
you're always anytime a gun makes the news, you're going to get at least a little bit. I'm actually a little surprised that you're getting as much of it here because it was at least a rumor I heard. I mean, again, it's nothing solid yet, but I guess he was potentially a registered Democrat, and maybe he was opening fire on a conservative venue with
yeah, I mean,
country.
yeah, I feel like that makes the most sense to me, but I mean, it's all speculation, so I don't really want to speculate on that yet. They're not. Apparently, they're having a hard time figuring out motive. So as of this recording, there's still no definitive motive. So, but that does seem like the most logical to me. So, but yeah, I mean, what I was going to say was I've had so much. It's hard for me to even go on Facebook, and it really bothers me because, or any social media for that matter, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or even Instagram.
Do you do Instagram?
I do Instagram. Yes, I do. Personally do. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
But anyway,
I didn't know. I didn't know you were so with
yeah,
it.
and I have, so yeah, man, it's very difficult because it's always like, okay, I mean, immediately. I mean, people are still in the hospital and still fighting for their life, and it's like within hours, it's like, oh, this is what happens when people, when we don't have gun laws and we need to ban guns, and this is all the fault of the GOP and the NRA, and there's even people on Twitter who say crazy stuff like, oh, they deserve it, and these are the people that voted for Trump, and they're all for gun rights, so they deserve it.
She got fired. She got fired.
A top CBS legal executive says she has no sympathy for the Las Vegas victims because country music fans are often Republican. Haley Geftman-Gold posted the rant on Facebook following Sunday's mass shooting on 40,000 concertgoers attending the Route 91 Harvest Festival. The death toll is approaching 60 and continues to rise. Geftman-Gold wrote, quote, "If they wouldn't do anything when children were murdered, I have no hope that the Repugs will ever do the right thing. I'm actually not even sympathetic because country music fans often are Republican gun toters."
Right. Well, that's one person, but there are actual, like, just normal people.
And she actually, just to be fair, to be even-handed, she did apologize.
And she wants to get hired again, man.
No. It wasn't that. In fact, if you read the actual apology, it was surprisingly contrite. So,
right.
I would say I'm satisfied with that. That particular outcome. I mean, as unfortunate it is, she lost her job. I mean, that's definitely, I guess that's justice as far as you're going to get for speaking out like that, and she totally owned it. So at least some remnant of kudos to her.
Okay.
So.
All right. Fair enough. You're such a nice guy.
Hey, I'm a fair guy. That's what I am. That's what I am. Plus, there's a whole Jesus thing. Judge not lest ye be judged, or forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. That kind of thing.
Right, and he who has no sin cast the first stone, and all that. Right. Right.
Yeah,
that too.
Right? I heard that too. Yeah.
So I mean, one of the things I really admire you for is the fact that you seem to really know revolutionary history really well, and that's not just like the battles and all that, but what was going on, what the lead up to the Declaration was, what the arguments, what kind of arguments were going on for the Constitution, words, verbiage, and things like that. So I kind of consider you an expert on the subject. So
wish I could live up to that. Sadly, I'm just more of a hobbyist, if you will.
So I kind of wanted to ask you, I mean, how do you feel about the attacks on the Second Amendment, and what is your opinion on the importance of the Second Amendment?
My opinion on the importance of the Second Amendment is. I feel like it's the glue that holds it all together, or the fail safe. Maybe that's a better term. Mm-hmm. You got the First Amendment, and that lays out all the things that we have the right to do. It's not given to us by the Constitution. The Constitution is, or that amendment is there specifically to protect those rights from the government. That was I mean, if you read the text, it says specifically that government does not have these powers. And the Second Amendment really is, it showed the importance of the individual guarding their own rights and their own communities. That's why it actually, I think, has that attachment with the militia. The militia that's who was called out to defend this fledgling nation, the Minutemen. You know, the militia was men who had their own weapons, provided their own equipment, but learned how to use these things. They weren't experts in fieldcraft like a professional soldier. A militia is just the people defending their homes, defending their families and their communities. And they recognized how important that was. In fact, they described it as being central to having a free society. It's absolutely necessary. So with that much importance on it, I think it got its own line there, its own amendment. Everybody has to be part of this militia. So the right to keep those arms and to use those arms could not be infringed by the government. I think that's central to what the Republic really is and what it really should be. At least, I don't know, that's my take on the Second Amendment. And as far as people's attacks, I mean, the attacks that you see, I don't think they're well thought out when you are looking at why we have the Second Amendment.
Right.
That's why it always comes out after a school shooting or a situation like this where somebody just opens fire. I mean that's evil any way you slice it. That's it's wrong, but it's already illegal. So the idea of, hey, let's put more law on the books to curb this from happening, keep this from happening ever again, or whatever. I mean, that's a fool's fantasy, because the laws that we have on the books, murder is a capital punishment in a lot of states. You can lose your life for it. You'll go away for the rest of it, no matter what. And if that's not a good deterrent to keep this from happening, I don't think that having a more stringent gun law is really going to do it. Automatic weapons are already illegal. I mean, it's already been banned. So the idea now is to just ban guns more. I guess
Right.
It's ridiculous. On its face, it's ridiculous, because we're not talking about the same thing anymore. You want to do away with the Second Amendment, which had a very specific task, a very specific right that it was guarding for a very specific reason, and you want to tear that down. You want to get rid of that. You want to scrap that because somebody did something evil with that right. And you see it when they talk about the First Amendment. They talk about, my freedom of speech.
Right.
What about my freedom to not be
speech.
offended? Yeah. Hate speech. You can use your freedom of speech any way you want, and jerks are going to go out there and they're going to use their freedom of speech to be jerks, and evil people will use this this awesome power of life and death for death. So it's one of those just horrible things that you gotta deal with, because freedom is not. It's not safe. Freedom's not cozy. Freedom's not comfortable. That's just the way it is.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. I've always thought, the Supreme Court, when they were ruling on Roe v. Wade, they said that when they read the Constitution at large, and specifically the Bill of Rights, they read a right to privacy in it, which I think a lot of people would consider, a lot of scholars consider to be a terrible decision.
My view is, regardless of whether you think prohibiting abortion is good or whether you think prohibiting abortion is bad, regardless of how you come out on that, my only point is the Constitution does not say anything about it. It leaves it up to democratic choice. Some states prohibited it, some states didn't. What Roe versus Wade said was that no state can prohibit it. That is simply not in the Constitution. It was one of those many things, most things in the world, left to democratic choice.
When I look at the Bill of Rights, I see it as sort of a blueprint of what the federal government can't do, like what the federal government can't impose on the people. And so that's sort of like just every single 1 through 10 is designed specifically for that purpose. Recently I had a conversation with someone who I said, he said, well, the founding fathers would have never put in the Second Amendment if they were either alive today or they knew that firearms would eventually reach the point of, where you can do mass harm to people.
Well, this is what they had in mind when they wrote the Second Amendment, a single-shot firearm that takes a bit of work to reload, the kind of thing that would make it impossible for someone to walk into his workplace or his school or a movie theater or a shopping mall and kill 20 people, pump bullets into 20 children.
And I said, I think it wouldn't have mattered to them. I think they would have still done the Second Amendment because that's not the point of the Second Amendment. The point of the Second Amendment was so that people would be able to fight a tyrannical government if they had to. And that's my opinion. And they said, well, I said, I don't think the founding fathers. I thought it was pretty clear that the founding fathers wouldn't care if they had known. And he said something flippant like, "Oh, you've spoken to them, huh?" And I said, "Well, man, I mean they've left thousands and thousands of documents on the subject. I don't think it's I don't think it's really a debatable thought." So what do you think? I mean, you know it better than I. What is your take on that?
Well, yeah, they did leave thousands of different kinds of documents. There's a lot, a lot of papers and memoirs and journals and all that. And oddly enough, the Second Amendment gets less play than you would think in some of those documents. So it's there's that, I guess, feather in their cap, but they do mention those sorts of things and how it's important. But I think that if they were alive today and we were fighting that particular brand of tyranny today with the weapons of today, I think it would have been absolutely clear, starkly obvious, probably to everyone involved that the weapon itself is not that's not what's important. The capabilities of the weapon and the capabilities of the weapon. The importance was that people had these weapons. They had access to these weapons to defend their communities. And it's not. We like to put onto it, hey, that this is about throwing off the chains of an oppressive government. We want our government to be afraid of us, and I don't think our government's really that afraid of us.
No,
they don't. they are marginally afraid of us. You know, the police are leery about going into, breaching someone's door and just busting into their house. I mean, there could be a guy with a gun in there, and they are aware of that. But if they ever had to put down a rebellion, I'm pretty sure that the Army or the Marines would do a pretty effective job of pushing down any small revolution. But if all of us got together and all of us had, even a common shotgun or whatever, we would then become a threat when there's 300 million of us and about 100,000 or so of them. I mean, yeah, it's gonna change. So I don't remember Red Dawn.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
somebody
that's,
actually mentioned that in that discussion. It's funny.
Oh,
that's how the discussion started.
Yeah, well, Red Dawn, that's the original Red Dawn. I didn't see the remake, which
the remake
I heard
is terrible.
Sucked. Yeah, I heard that was terrible. So, well, and why wouldn't it be? I mean,
well, Patrick
the
Swayze's
first one,
not in it, so
some movies are just good the way they are, and I don't think
Right.
you need a remake.
Right.
That was probably one of them. But that's the heart and soul of what a militia is, the oppression of the government, whether it be outside influences coming in, or if it just happens to be maybe a sheriff's department that's a little too grabby of people's personal property. I mean, eventually if the people have the means to defend themselves, they will. And I think the founding fathers wanted them to have the means to defend themselves from whatever the threat might be. That's the reason for the Second Amendment. We talk a lot about home defense. Home defense is important. I wouldn't diminish it, but the reason for the Second Amendment was not specifically home defense. It was society's defense.
So, I mean, what do you think about gun control, man? I mean, what's the future? Where are we headed? I mean, are we going to, is the Second Amendment going to be gone? Are they going to just like chip at it until it's virtually gone? How do you feel? I mean, there's a lot of questions, but I think it's the same question. How do you feel about any kind of gun control, whether it's background checks, or somebody mentioned we need to have psych evaluations. Anytime you want to buy a gun, you have to have a psych eval. Licensing, gun safety classes. How do you feel about any of that? And that is not even getting to the point of we'll start banning guns like they do in Australia. They just banned handguns in Australia,
We're already all kinds of banned in Australia. Didn't they take people's rifles and saw them and destroy them? Old piratey pistols. They were cutting them up. I remember seeing those videos.
Yeah. All that's left is that big giant knife that Paul Hogan had in Crocodile
Dundee. Yeah.
That's all they have left to protect themselves, man.
And your wallet.
Nick, give him your wallet.
What for?
He's got a knife.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
You call that a knife?
My favorite part was when he's shaving, and then she starts walking over, and so he takes out that knife and pretends like he's shaving with it. That was awesome. Okay, back to your question. Do I think that the Second Amendment's going to ever be gone? I mean, that's not a decision for me to make.
Well, what do you see the writing on the wall? so to speak.
I really thought that I did. I'm not about the Second Amendment per se, but in all of it. I thought that that I was unique, that nobody else thought as I thought. I thought that was just, that you and I were rarities amongst people, and that everyone else really just was deep in the Kool-Aid, drinking it. I thought that social justice warriors, before there was such a thing, I thought that they had taken over. They had every bit of academia. It was obvious to me that they had every aspect of the media, the print media, the TV. Anytime you turned on the TV, it was very biased, and it was hard to describe to people that while they were presenting facts, that they were presenting them in very particular ways, using particular words, and to spin a narrative, and it seemed impossible, to have people wake up. Conservatives, they're the talk radio crowd, right? Talk radio is boring. It's not exciting. Doesn't entertain like TV does. So it never seemed to have the power and the impact. But apparently it's still there. Apparently the conservative ideals, the classic liberals and the libertarians and the silent majority and the evangelical Christian, they're all alive and well. Just been, apparently they had been driven underground, and I wasn't able to see most of them.
Right.
But now YouTube, even as a very left-leaning organization, Google has provided this platform, and I see it sprouting again. Like the very beginning of spring. There's still plenty of snow on the ground, but you start to see those little tiny green buds among the millennials. And they are struggling with those same questions that we were struggling with. Should I be a libertarian? Is that too far? Is that not far enough? And how virtuous do we have to be, and should we legislate that? I mean, these things they're alive and well with them, and I start to see them even having debates about universal health care. They could be pro and they could be con universal health care, and still somehow maintain those ideals of we don't want to force it necessarily on people, and so they're having these mind-blowing conversations, and they're doing these really I'm starting to see it again, like it's an awakening, and it gives me hope that I didn't really have until very, very recently. I thought all was lost when they had the schools and they were indoctrinating children, and as they are now. I really thought that was the beginning of the end. And what was that line from Reagan? That freedom is always one generation away from being destroyed. So something to that effect. I'm sorry, Ronnie. I'm misquoting you.
I actually heard somewhere that this coming generation, the next one, not the millennial generation, the next one is actually one of the most conservative generations. If for no other reason than the fact that it's a backlash to the SJW generation, So everything is like it's always like one generation tries to rebel, from the last, and like I said, I heard somewhere that this generation is just tired of that. So or the next generation, whatever it's going to be called, Z or A or whatever it is. So I think
know.
the millennials
They go through how many names before one of them
millennials are
sticks?
Z. I think. Oh wait, no, millennials are Y.
No.
Yes, because
They're
we're
not what?
X.
No, they wanted to call them what? They called the millennials all kinds of stuff, and then the millennial thing stuck because it's kind of a cool name, but I don't think it's necessarily a good descriptor. The millennials were born in what, the 90s, most of them. So I don't know, whatever, maybe.
Yeah.
But I have hope even amongst the millennials. If I don't think that people talk to the millennials. I think there's your problem.
Yeah.
They've been so characterized and so painted, and they allowed themselves to be so because they just have their head in their phone all day long. And so people are talking about them, and since everybody, they're like this, so nobody decided to talk to them. They just talk about them. And they're like, oh, they're all so liberal and so this and so that or whatever. And it turns out that they're neither. You talk if a left-leaning, crazy, tyrannist wants to sit down and have a good conversation about communism and the Trotskyism versus Leninism, they will be upset at the millennial. The millennial will not do what they want them to do. The millennial will not respond in the way they think they should. And so they're going to be written off as some kind of, crazy fascist, conservative, when they're absolutely not. And then on the other hand, here comes, Johnny Conservative wants to, talk about some abortion rights or whatever. And there's old millennial like this. And what are they going to And what's the millennial going to talk about? No. You know what? They're not going to get into that, right? Choice and this and that. Who knows? They're not going to fall into the category. I don't think that the millennials can be properly pigeonholed because nobody wanted to sit down and have a good conversation with them. My son, he went out and he voted Libertarian, and I was just like, what?
Gary Johnson.
Where did that even come from?
Gary Johnson, right?
Yeah, but in truth, you vote. Yeah, you vote in California. If you were voting for Trump, you're throwing your vote away anyway. So that was a complete lock. But
all right, good discussion.
But really, I don't even. Did we even talk about it? I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah, we do. We've been talking.
Felt good to me. If it felt good to you.
Quick sign off. What are we doing? Let's do. We want
Dutch, Icelandic.
Dutch. Okay, yeah. Here we go. Let's do my native language. Let's do Tagalog.
What?
Yeah.
This will be cool. This will be nice to learn. Yeah.
Yes,
do you even speak Tagalog? I mean, be honest. How much do you really speak?
I speak very
Other
little.
than food. Food doesn't count. Actually, food counts
I
a lot
speak
for me.
very little, but I understand it. If somebody were to speak to me in it, I fluently understand it. So,
well, that's excellent. That's actually quite good.
But the problem is I think in English. I don't think in Tagalog.
Okay.
So, in order for me to talk back to them in Tagalog, I'd have to translate it in my head, and it's not there. The translation isn't there. So, but when they talk to me, there's no translation involved because it's just like I know what they're saying. It's like when you speak English to me, I know what you're saying. I don't have to go, okay, what is that in Tagalog? You know what I mean? So,
right.
So when they speak to me, there's no translation. It's just okay. They say zapato, which is a Spanish word too, but that's also
that's shoe.
Tagalog. It's also Tagalog for shoe. So
wow.
when they say that,
I speak some Tagalog.
There you go. Exactly.
I don't think we're going to get adios out of this, are we? It's not, is
no,
it?
No, it's not. No.
Okay.
It's paalam. 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 Paalam.
Paalam?
Yeah,
how many
paalam.
Is it paalam?
It's paalam. There's two A's in it, so it's paalam. Yeah, paalam. Yeah, so which is interesting because that word actually means something like tell everybody.
If there was nobody else there, would you still say it was just two people?
What's that?
Well, if it's just two people in a room and one of them's leaving the room, do they still say pa'alam?
Yes. Because you have other people in the family. You see what I'm saying?
Well,
It's
so
a
but
hu-
if it's
it-
just two people in a room, you're still saying tell everyone? That's kind of
yeah.
interesting.
Because you know it's a very it's a big family. You know, there's if everybody has huge families.
Yeah.
So when you say that, you're like saying goodbye, but you want to say, "Oh yeah, I didn't see Aunt, Rose, so just tell her goodbye too." That's basically how it is. You tell the whole family goodbye. That I was here, say hi. Basically, say hi and goodbye at the same time. That's how I always took it, and I think that's really what it
Yeah.
means. But yeah. So there you go.
What do you say over the phone? Same. Pa'alam.
I think it's usually just goodbye.
Oh.
Tagalog is here's the thing about the Philippines, okay? Even though Filipino is the official language,
Yeah.
everybody speaks English there. I mean, it surprises me when I run into people who don't speak English.
Yeah.
It surprises me.
It's a weird history,
Yeah.
you know.
So Taglish is like a thing. I mean, there's nobody. Yeah, there's nobody who speaks just Tagalog. It's like 40% English, even when they're speaking Tagalog. So when
Pretty handy, I
when you
suppose.
say goodbye, on the phone, you say goodbye, yeah, something like that. Okay, goodbye, and there's always an accent,
Yeah.
because Filipinos have that accent, but
Not all of
so there, so there it is.
them. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So paalam.
All right. Pa'alam.